Welcome to the Armored Soil Podcast, brought to you by the Renville County SWCD, where we look to bring real-life information on all things sustainable resources and agriculture. We believe that soil is invaluable and that protecting our soil is the key to sustaining all aspects of life. Please like and subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. The information you will hear about is personal experience and is no way economic or agronomic advice. If you are interested in implementing these practices or techniques you hear about, we recommend you reach out to your agronomist and our CS office or local conservation district for ways to work them into your operation. For more information about our liability or podcast, please visit our website at renvilleswcd.com.
Welcome back to the Armored Soil Podcast. This is Pamela Winzenburg, your host, and today I am joined with Grant and Dawn Breitkreutz out of Redwood Falls. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so today we are really hoping to talk about your journey through soil health and your mentorship and how you guys play a really, really important part in our local community of growers in implementing soil health practices, because we know that you guys have been doing this for a while and that you guys are always willing to share some information and talk with growers.
Yeah, it's important to share. There's no reason we all have to figure this out a second time. We struggled trying to find the right people to give us guidance when we started, and we just decided about 12 years ago that we should just share what we know, what's been good, what's been bad.
No, and I think that's super important because there's nothing better than talking with each other and figuring things out. You guys only get 40 growing seasons roughly in your lifetime, and I know that number's thrown around a lot, but quite frankly, it's true. You only get 4 main decision seasons, and it's really important to figure out things as quickly as you can. So if you guys just want to start off telling us a little bit about your operation, what we have going on around here. I know you guys are pretty busy, so just go ahead and let us know what's going on.
So our farm has expanded quite a bit since Dawn and I started 27 years ago. When we started, we were primarily corn, soy, and we were still growing some small grain. And then we kind of went away from that. And then when we started down this path, we've obviously put grains back into our operation. So we grow corn and soy yet, all non-GMO. All our soybeans go into a food grade market. Corn just goes into the commodity market yet. And then we grow winter triticale, cereal rye, oats, and a 7-grain mix all together to add diversity to the operation now. So, and along with that, we run about 100 to 120 mama cows. And then we also changed our operation to run their calves as yearlings for another year. It's opened up a lot of different marketing options for us, partially pushed by COVID. It was pushed by COVID, why we changed that. And then our daughter and son-in-law wanted to add more diversity back here, so we have laying hens. We do raise some broilers once in a while. We outside finish some hogs on pasture.
I think that's enough.
I think that's enough. I think that's all we've got going on here.
No, that's good. That's a lot that you guys got going on. It sounds like you're pretty busy year-round then.
Absolutely. With the acreage we're trying to cover, we didn't want to upgrade combines, so by having that third grain and there's small grains in there, it spreads our harvest window out a lot, so that's helped a lot. We've been 100% no-till now for 12 years. We started no-tilling soybeans back in 1998, and we never did give up on that, but eventually got to no-tilling all the crops 12 years ago.
Yeah, what do your cover crops look like? You mentioned that 7-way grass mix. Is that something you usually just use as a cover, or do you end up harvesting that for some type of feed?
No, the 7-way mix is oats, peas, barley, wheat, faba beans, lentils, and flax, all planted together with the drill in the spring of the year and harvested as dry grain. And that's 100% of our poultry feed, and it's half of our hog feed. So it's combined as dry grain.
Okay, no, that's good that you guys are able to make this operation change work, and especially with adding those hens into your livestock crop essentially. That's really good that you guys are able to grow your own feed. Have you guys tested your protein on that? And do you know if that's been increasing with the help of soil health or not necessarily?
Yeah, in a year given somewhat normal rainfall, it's testing between 19 and 21%. This year, a big chunk of the field drowned out from too much rain, and then we got extremely dry. And this year it only tested at 16%, but it's still a good ration for poultry.
Yeah, that'll still get you guys hopefully through the winter with a lot of that. So I don't have much experience with hogs. How is that beneficial towards the hogs?
Well, it works great as a protein source for the hogs. The biggest thing with that we had was that when we have excess eggs, we had a customer that would buy the excess eggs, and there's a market for soy-free eggs. And so that's what pushed this 7-grain product. So we don't have to buy any soybean meal. So we're actually not buying any supplemental protein off the farm.
Oh, wow.
To feed this livestock.
No, that's really good. Has that always been kind of a part of your guys' drive to transforming to soil health practices on your operation? Is that you wanted to do more for your livestock and helping them get the nutrient benefits that they need?
Well, we didn't know we were doing this until we met David Brandt, probably one of the godfathers of soil health. And David Brandt, it was in the winter, he said, well, we're going to be presenting all week together. Go get a corn sample out of your bin tonight. He says, I know your crude protein is higher than anybody's around here. And I didn't believe him. Mm-hmm. And he proved it to us. We were at just about 10% crude protein.
Oh, wow. And
at the time we had a feedlot running here, custom feeding cattle for other people. And you asked the nutritionist at that time, the average in this area is 4.5 to 6.5% crude protein. Mm-hmm. So through the soil health principles that we've been using, our corn was up there 3, 4, 5% higher than industry average around here. And so that just showed us that we didn't have to purchase as much off-farm protein to finish cattle. So
yeah, and that's typically with reduced inputs from you guys, correct?
yeah, it's one less input we have to buy to produce livestock. So
that was our primary driver at first, was just financial. We wanted to be as efficient as possible, and so that's why we never looked at the nutrient density of anything that we were feeding them. It was just, well, we can raise what we need here on the farm, so let's do that. And that's then we met David and other people who talked about what we were doing when we didn't even know it. So it was kind of a nice surprise.
And as far as cover crops, we were cover cropping before they were even called cover crops, but our primary goal there was just to try to produce 3 crops in 2 years. And it was simply trying to produce forage for the livestock here, for the cattle. And we got into a rainy spell one May when we were trying to get triticale put up, and we couldn't get it put up, and tremendous rainstorm through the night. And I told Dawn that we have to get this done. It was getting so big we couldn't get it through our harvest equipment anymore. And we'd had 1 3/4 inch rain that night. She went out and cut all day with the swather, never left the track, and we were running 8 hours behind her with choppers and never left the track. And it's like, ding, 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 something changed here.
Yeah, definitely when the light bulb moment goes off.
We should have had ruts that you couldn't have planted through that year, and we didn't leave a track.
No, that's a really good sign that you're building up that water stable aggregates and that you're building your soil health in just ways you never could have comprehended.
Yeah, it was one of those aha moments. Things changed.
So is that kind of when you started to implement a couple more things, or how long ago was that?
Not really. The light bulb didn't go on then yet. We really started to understand soil health in our grazing operation. Through grazing management, we started out with an NRCS equip contract where we split a 49-acre pasture into 7 or 9 paddocks and put water out there, and immediately saw the grazing days double. And we were short on land at the time, and we loved the cattle, so we wanted more and more days of grazing. So I thought, if we could double this once, there's got to be a way to do it again. So I started studying grazing management. And at that time, it was called MOB and MIG and all kinds of different terms. There was all kinds of different people promoting different grazing management styles. And we happened across Ian Mitchell Innes from South Africa, and he was kind of the godfather of grazing at that time, and went through a 3-day seminar with him, and he taught us, but we still didn't realize it was about soil health. What he taught us was all about management above the ground, what we could do with the livestock, give it plenty of rest and recovery. So we're basically mimicking the bison, and we saw our pastures change. We saw swamps dry up because we were infiltrating the water up on top of the hills instead of it running down. We were getting more grazing acres. We were getting more grass on top of the hills. And then I don't remember, but somewhere along the line, all of a sudden it's like we just changed every single grazing pasture we've got. Why aren't we looking at what we're doing in our grain operation? Why aren't we focusing on that?
And I think about that time is when we figured out that we had cyst nematode problems here with the soybeans. And one of those, at that time, it wasn't a cover crop, it was a forage crop that was planted, showed us that it eliminated the cyst nematode problem.
Oh, by breaking apart that pest cycle?
And so, so everything kind of coalesced at one time, and it's like, oh my God, why aren't we doing this on the row crops? So it was a lot of little things that all kind of came together at the right time and pushed us down the path a little bit further.
Yeah. Have you seen other pests, like anything change with your aphid population, or just other worries like cutworm or armyworm? People have talked about that happening in some cover crop fields. So there can be benefits and some damages to cover crops. But.
We've never had problems with the armyworm yet on soybeans. We've had problems on some of the newer land that we've picked up with some pests where we should have used an insecticide. It was our fault. We weren't there monitoring. We missed it, application time. But what we have seen is on land that's been managed this way for a long time, for 5 to 7 years, is on the lands that we've managed this way, we haven't sprayed for soybean aphids in, it'll be 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
Do we have soybean aphid? Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm.
But we never get to economic threshold levels.
Have you noticed an increase in your biological predators, like your lady beetles are out there?
When you open up the soybean canopy, it's just full of bugs I've never seen in my life. I don't know what they are, but it's obviously they're keeping the aphid pressure low enough that we don't get to threshold levels.
No, that's amazing. 10 years without applying insecticide for your soybean aphids, that's nearly unheard of. I mean, it's just about every year I hear someone that lost a good chunk of their soybean crop due to aphids and because they weren't monitoring it right. And that's huge that you guys can just take that one step back in your operation and not have to worry about one more thing.
And now this year we learned another important lesson. We had 2 fields here on the home farm where we didn't have overwintering cover crops. We did it specifically because we didn't know what we were going to do with these 2 chunks of ground. We were probably going to go to a spring grain, and we didn't. They ended up going to soybeans. Mm-hmm. Those hit economic threshold levels.
Oh, wow.
And I immediately went and looked at all of our other soybean fields where we had cover crop. I couldn't find an aphid that particular day.
Wow.
We chose not to spray them. We just
didn't do it, and they ended up being really, really good soybeans.
Yeah, they did just fine.
Wow. No, that's an amazing, again, I keep saying this aha moment, but I mean, you guys just continually seem to have these moments where it just keeps clicking more and more. And I know you guys see it, but to actually see it on your own operation and not just hear about it from someone else it just must be so fulfilling, I guess, to see it happen on your own operation. It
keeps us going. Let's just put it that way. I mean, we get so frustrated, especially with the curves that Mother Nature has thrown at us, and all of a sudden there'll be that little thing, and it's like, oh, okay, we're okay, mm-hmm. We're doing all right.
Yeah, when you start questioning your management practices, it seems like the good Lord will show you whether you're right or wrong. But we have to observe that. We've got to be out there looking to see what's going on.
And honestly, that's one of the keys to being a mentor also is knowing that there's other mentors out there, there's other people out there in this space that want to help. And so those roadblocks and hurdles and all those things are just a phone call away with answers, you know, and that's the one awesome thing that we can do is, as farmers, we can help each other. You know, before we just had our chemical companies or our co-ops to go to, but they're not out here on the farm. They're not out here in the land. They're not experiencing what we're experiencing. And so now being able to go to somebody that has the experience on the ground is really important to us. And passing that message along to other people is super important too. That's why we're here.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it's not like you guys are gaining any benefit from sharing this information. I mean, you guys are more than likely receiving something back, but it's not like you're receiving some kind of incentive for selling this product or talking about this practice or another. You're not making any money off the seed. I mean, maybe sure you are selling your triticale to other growers who maybe want to try it in the area, but that's not a main driver for you guys. And I can just see the passion that you guys have had in your operation to just want to share this with others.
For too long, our input suppliers have done a really good job of selling us inputs, and we do need inputs to grow the crops that we grow here in southern Minnesota. But to be able to show a producer there's another way without having to have that expense and put some more profitability back in their pocket, that's what it's really all about, keeping the farmer on the land. And if we can do that through these practices, you know, there's trial and error to it all, but it's just rewarding to us to help other producers figure this out. And we've dealt with many different producers, and some of them right close to us here. One particular individual we worked with for 6 years, and for the last, in his 4th and 5th year, the grasshoppers were just whooping him, and he couldn't figure it out. And finally I told him, I said, you know what, let's just wait one more year. And this year, no grasshoppers. Now, did they all drown from the spring rains? Maybe, but, you know, there's a process to all this, and we've seen it on the newer lands that we've picked up. There's an evolution to how the soils change and how the biology changes and the pests and good predators that you deal with as it changes.
Yeah, it's not an overnight change. It takes a little bit of time. And I mean, you guys are constantly learning as your soils are constantly evolving and changing and trying to fit more into this soil health and mimicking that native prairie we had here. I mean, you guys, a lot of your fields are right on that river valley there, and that had a lot of diversity, and I'm sure that had a lot of animal tracking through it. And so it must have been super healthy soil, you know, a few hundred years ago when it was natively managed. And so I just think it's really cool to see that you guys are trying to bring that back here.
Well, that was one of the real eye-openers to me, was once we started studying soil health, the native prairie here before settlement was at about 13% organic matter. And I'll be honest, my dad, granddad, me and Dawn ourselves, we had some of this soil down under 2% organic matter.
Wow.
Like you say, we're along the river here on the bluffs, so we're on some lighter soils to begin with, but we did that through our management practices. We have now built those soils back up to 5.5% to 6% organic matter.
Wow, that's a really big change. That's a lot with your nutrients, and that's a lot with just that overall plant health. I mean, there's nothing that can compete with good organic environment for that plant.
Right, and when you start studying organic matter, what's all in it, what it can do for you, the water holding capacity, you know, our hills don't burn up anymore because there's organic matter built into the hills now. It can hold so much more water. There's 20 to 40 pounds of nitrogen with every percent of organic matter that's naturally available every year to use in a corn crop that maybe a lot of us don't give ourselves credit for, you know, as we're doing our nutrient management plans. But I had a theory at one time that as things were rebuilding here on the farm, once we doubled our organic matter, it seemed like we hit the easy button. You know, that theory's been thrown out, but as organic matter rebuilds in the soil, it does make farming a lot easier. And by saying that, I mean just planting, or if you're still doing tillage, or just management gets easier because the soil is starting to function again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going back to those insects that you saw with those soybeans, I mean, that all feeds right into building up that organic matter because you need those natural decomposers and shredders, and that I'm sure you guys have tested your soils for hyphae and bacteria activity levels, because that is also so important with just building up that organic matter, if you have all that residue on there, it's not going to go anywhere if you don't have anything to take care of it. So
Our simplest indicator before all these tests became available in the last few years was the earthworm. We could see earthworm populations building quickly if we were doing things right. If we made a mistake, they would decline. And that's as simple as using a spade. You know, it's cheap. You can do it yourself. But now we've got a lot of new tests that can do it in the lab also.
yeah, so if you don't want to pay, you can just take a shovel out in your field, or I mean, even if you just walk it and you can see those earthworm middens on the surface, you can tell when you have that active population there. Is that something you guys would kind of go through with new growers when they come to you about this? Do you walk them through kind of that biological activity, or is that something you wait until they bring it up because they just might not get it until you see it?
We try to bring it up, but everybody has to come to realize where they are in their soil health path at their own pace. And if we're talking to a grower and you can just, we've talked to enough people that we can just see the blank look on their face. It's like they're not ready for it. But they'll take the first one or two steps. And all of a sudden, 2 or 3 years later, you'll get that phone call. Okay, we talked about this 3 years ago, but now you're to that point on your farm where you're seeing this or want to understand it. So there's definitely a timeline that a producer goes through as things start changing. You know, we're there to answer the phone all the time. And like I say, everybody's got their own timeline. So if it's a producer that I talk to not very often, I got to think about or ask a question. Okay, are you 3 or 5 years into this? You know, where is it? Because that really changes what's happening on their farm.
Absolutely.
Because we've seen it on these newer farms that we've picked up. There's a progression to change. And I say it's 3 to 5 years before the soil starts functioning again, following the principles. And a lot of that's weather determinant, if we get good cover crops or we don't, or if we're still doing some tillage or we're not. Or
You have animal integration, that's huge.
for us, that's
it's just
huge.
slower if you don't have that animal integration. We know that. We've experienced it.
The biology that falls out of the back end of the cow cannot be duplicated in any lab, nor will it ever be. So it really cranks up the biology on the soil when we can walk a cow across it.
No, absolutely. Just that agitation from their hoofs too. I mean, it's all just, again, mimicking what we had back here hundreds and thousands of years ago. Everything we've had go across this landscape is what we need to emulate, you know, now in this modern day agriculture, because it's what Mother Nature intended our land to be like. And so that's really great to see that you guys are doing that and encouraging other growers to do it and just being that helping hand.
The biggest thing with this is we still have to grow a crop. We still have to be profitable. You can't just say I'm going to plant a cover crop and I'm going to plant green and grow 100 bushel corn and think we're going to survive. It doesn't work that way. As a producer, the producers have to understand what each one of the principles that they're going to implement, how it's going to affect them, what it's going to do, how they're going to change nutrient management, tillage, whatever the case may be. It all ties together. But it all can change, especially if the mindset is there that we're going to change. And that's the key, is got to have the mindset. As human beings, we can make anything fail. We can also make anything thrive. So we got to have that right mindset that we're going to change things, and we're going to hit some obstacles along the way. But
You need to understand that that change is going to continue to happen. There is no static in this at all. You get rid of the picture of the easy button, it's never going to be easy, nor should it be. I mean, look how complex nature is. We're just trying to find our place in this and do it so that we do the least amount of damage to nature while still encouraging that life. And it's a delicate balance, and it is frustrating as hell sometimes, but it's also very rewarding in others to see the new life that's coming and to see the health of everything come. But we have to be patient with ourselves and with nature too, and with the animals that we're having to manage every day.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, even if you were conventional growers, it's not like that's an easy button either. I mean, you still have to be monitoring everything that's going on. You got to make sure that you can get your tillage passes out there right on time, and you have to make sure that your soil is able to handle that. I mean, is it too dry? Is it too wet? Are you going to cause more issues? So, I mean, there's not really an easy button either side you look at it. So you just got to choose which side you want to be on.
Right.
We find this side is much more fun.
Yeah.
It is. It's, we can say it here on the home farm that we don't have to use the sides as much anymore because the biology is taking care of that for us. Obviously, crop rotation is huge in it too, but it's all part of the system that we've got functioning again, and it just makes it more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you guys have mentioned a couple names throughout this episode of different growers from different continents. Is that something that you guys tend to do regularly? As you find people from other continents, other states, do you find that beneficial in your guys' soil health journey? Just talking with other people from other areas because they may not be just like us here, but is there anything you can take from them?
A lot. We used to work real closely just with the community around here. Now I've got friends in I don't know how many states. If all of a sudden I come across this problem, I'm like, okay, I'm going to call David in Illinois, or I'll call David in Ohio, or Shane in Kansas, or whoever's I've gotten to know, got to meet that would potentially have gone through the same issue. So that network is huge now. To just call.
We have a network.
Yeah.
We didn't have that network before.
When we started.
We have a network, and it does reach worldwide. That's the cool thing is that you can take these principles and apply them all over the world, and they work. Is it the same crops or anything like that? No, it's not. It's not even the same livestock. But it has been proven to work everywhere, and that's the common language that we all can use everywhere, everywhere people are. And now with, all the communication capability and instant access, we can talk to somebody in Australia if we need to. We've met some really cool people from there. So, and that's the beauty of things too, is just expanding our horizons off of just our little, 450 acre farm here and growing, if you think about the roots in the soil and all that stuff, well, we're growing roots too. It's just, that communications network is growing, and that's the comfort that we hope people get from when we talk to them, is making them understand and trust that there are other people out there that want them to succeed. Mm-hmm. So,
and we're not selling anything.
Sunshine and hope.
No, I think that's a good way to put it. You guys are just trying to encourage people to do what's best for them in their operation, and hopefully we can get the world a better place and rebuild our environment and our soils. So that's wonderful to hear.
If we could get Mother Nature to calm down, that would help a lot too.
Oh yeah, I think she's never really gonna want to cooperate with us.
No.
So you guys have also done a lot of speaking engagements. Have you found a lot of benefit in your guys' own operation that you get to go to these places around the state, around the county, around the world? I mean, I guess I don't know the expansion that you guys have been able to go to, and how's that benefited you guys, as well as that you've seen that impact on other growers?
There's always another producer in another state or another country that's tried something that we've been thinking about. And when we go to speak at these seminars or wherever we're speaking at, you meet those people. And it's never during our talk. And I always hope that we get one day there before we get to talk, because we'll go back and redo our entire presentation with the people that we meet there. The soil health movement is very different, and it's very regionalized, county by county, state by state. An example, last winter we went to Wisconsin to talk, and we were there early in the morning and started meeting the producers coming in, and I looked at Dawn and I was like, over noon hour, we're changing our entire presentation. These people are not taking their baby steps. They're taking big steps. We need to change the presentation. But the biggest thing with being able to travel and meet other producers is the American farmers, most innovative farmer there is in the world. And talking to other producers about how they've tackled a problem or a challenge or a concern, it's just great. It's helped our knowledge. It's helped us change things faster here, to the point, that there's a lot of new products coming to the market right now that we think can really help promote and benefit our production, our profit per acre, and still benefit the biology in the soil and not do damage. And that's where we get to meet these people, is all these different conferences and conventions that are going on.
Yeah, so just building that network, and whether you're talking with other growers or, just talking to actual co-ops or people who are making these products, it's really important to talk to them and just figure out what they're going to do. And everyone's going to have their elevator speech if they work for a private company, but I think it's important that you guys are willing to try things out and learn it and share that information in an unbiased way.
We're entering a new era in production agriculture here, especially in the upper Midwest, of what I would call the wild, wild west of the biologicals, the decomposers. There's so many products coming at us in agriculture right now that I firmly believe we as farmers have to do our own testing on our own farms with these products and see which ones work and which ones don't. Like you said, there's always an elevator sales pitch from those selling, but the only way we know is if we test and prove on our own farms.
And it's always going to be different. Your soils are going to be completely different than someone 2 miles down the road, but you can share that information and you can encourage them to try it. But I think it's good that you guys are still willing to try it out and be that experimental type of fields out here in the area.
My eyes got really opened up to this past winter at a conference. A friend of ours from North Carolina, we hadn't seen him for a while. He's doing this testing on his farm, like I mentioned, and he told me, he said, Grant, he says, I was angry, completely angry, on a farm that I had managed for 12 years, did all the principles, cover crop, no-till, animal integration, everything he could possibly do right, and saw one of these new products, a biological, come to the market that gave him a 48 bushel acre yield increase. He said, it made me angry that we had followed these principles, and this was my best farm that I've had, period. And then to see an increase that great, and obviously net return on investment was huge for this product. But he said, then I got over the anger. And it opened my eyes to how far can we possibly push these crops and still improve soil health by using these new products that are coming to the market. So now we have conversations with him 6-7 times a year.
Yep. No, I think it's really fun to see just what we probably had going back in the prairie. How beneficial those, I'm sure if you guys would have grazed a native pasture, it would have been amazing quality of forage for your guys' livestock. And so it's just really fun to see that we're trying to find these chemicals and these biological agents to try and mimic that and make it healthier for our livestock, which then comes back right onto us as humans, that we're eating this stuff and it's coming back into our food system. So we should want to care about it and want to try and make it as best as we can for our own health.
Absolutely.
Like I say, we're in the wild, wild west right now. We saw things change on our farm as far as animal health. We used to be a $8,000 to $12,000 a year vet bill type deal operation here. We're running 4 times the amount of livestock now, and we get by on about, last year was $1,700, and most of that was vaccines that we've just chose not to give up yet. Mm-hmm. And that directly has proven to us that what we do on the soil correlates right to animal health. And like mentioned, there's a lot of studying being done now to prove that it affects human health. Mm-hmm. The amount of data that's coming out lately is just incredible.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of them speak at different engagements where I've also seen you guys at. So I know that you guys are kind of all running the same circle. We're all trying to talk the same talk and figure out the same problem that we see going on all throughout the world. So that's really fun to see.
It's been fulfilling, let's put it that way. I used to get excited when I first started gardening, and we'd sit down to a meal, and everything on that plate was raised here on the farm but then, you start thinking about it and hearing what these nutritionists are talking about that are working with soil health. And there's a reason why that should be exciting. It should be extremely exciting. And hopefully that's going to encourage people to get back to growing their own food and understanding what's in the soil. I don't think most people understand the life that's there or that should be there that lends to the nutrient density of their food.
Absolutely.
Everybody just looks at soil as, a medium to hold that plant. There's actually life in there. And to get people to understand that and nurture it is really, it's a massive message. There's a lot of little pockets of I don't know what you'd call it, agricultural nuances, I guess, would be gardeners and all that sort of thing that are working on this, but we need to all work together. Everybody's kind of been in their separate spaces, but we need to cross those lines and start working together to make this movement work faster, because I think we're running out of time.
Definitely.
I'm sad.
No, I think it's important to talk to people that maybe don't seem like they're going to be exactly like what you're talking about. Gardeners to row crops to even arborists, because when you think about mycorrhizal fungi, I mean, that's highly studied between trees, and that's something that we see in our soils right here is that we can see that fungi being built up. And so it's just, there's not a whole lot of education pieces in a soil health technically kind of publications or things like that, but you see it in other forms of our environment. And so just making sure that you're open to those communications, exactly like what you're saying, it's so important to work together and talk to each other, even if you might think it might be a bad conversation, it might not be worth your time. It very well could be, even if you get one nugget of information from them.
So, like I said, every farm, every producer is going to be on his own different level. When they get to talking about mycorrhizal fungi, I know they're ready to hear the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But for me, that was one of those deals. It's like voodoo. It's like witch work. That can't be happening in our soils, yet we see it happening. And, there's different levels to wanting and learning about what's happening in the soil. And we don't have to go to that extreme level. We don't have to go to Dr. Chris Nichols' level of what's going on in the soil. But as a producer, we can understand how some of these functions are going to affect us and affect our profitability. And if that's all the farther a grower wants to go, that's just fine. Mm-hmm. It's about staying profitable and hopefully helping heal and fix what we've done over the last 120, 150 years of farming. So we can still maintain profitability, we can still grow a tremendous crop, and we can fix some of what's happened in rural America.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's honestly really, really important for us to focus on here in our area. So in our small town, USA, you've helped a lot of neighbors. How have you guys kind of spearheaded that in our area?
On the larger scale, we're 60 miles from South Dakota, and it started on the grazing side. They have a very active grasslands coalition out there. They do their winter tours. We would make sure and go every year just to see these speakers that would speak to us about soil health. At the same time, we watched South Dakota start South Dakota Soil Health Coalition, which is an offshoot of the Grasslands Coalition. I knew 7 of the 9 original board members on that coalition. We watched that explode in South Dakota to help producers understand what they needed to know. So we were on the steering committee to bring that here to Minnesota on the state level. So the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition is here and has been functioning for 5 years now. And it's just blowing up. I mean, Mark needs help. But it's really cool to see that it grew that quickly here in Minnesota, just like it did in South Dakota. There was a need, and it happened here. And like you mentioned before, we travel all over, and it's always been recommended that you have a local group. And we've seen some of these local groups. We've gotten to go speak to some of these local groups. So one of the people that we mentored over the last 6 years this winter said it needs to start here locally. And I said, we don't have time. We can't do it. But we've got a facility here. This office will hold 30 people. You know, we can get them in here in the winter. And he said, I'll do all the footwork. I'll make all the phone calls. So it started out with 8 people, then 11 people, and now it's grown to 30 plus. And that all happened from February until we went to plant this spring.
Wow.
The need locally is stronger than we ever thought it was. And thankfully we had some good guidance putting together these local deals. We keep it at 2 hours, quick, simple, so everybody can stay on schedule. We all got other farm work to do. A lot of us have livestock, so everybody knows when they're going to be home to do chores or whatever needs to happen. But the interaction that happens here on that local level in that 2 hours is just intense. I mean, just incredible what we can get through in 2 hours. And it's just farmer to farmer sharing. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the last meeting we had before we went to plant this spring was bring a picture of your planter setup. And the information that was shared there was just unbelievable. Well, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? And everybody talked about it for days afterwards. And I think these local deals are important because what we see on these local deals, when you start talking about soil health, it's not, I'm going to go steal this chunk of land away from you anymore. It's how can I help you be more profitable on your land so you don't have to have more land?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that expansion is bad, but we can be more profitable per acre. And that's what it's about, is just making enough profit to survive each year without having to cover a lot of land.
Plus having these groups, these local groups, you're within a short driving distance to somebody who might be having a problem or that has something to show you, or you have a question about whatever it is. Then all of a sudden you've got somebody locally, you know, they're not in North Carolina or, you know, Indiana or anything like that. They're local. So you can go put eyes and put feet and hands, you know, on that issue and help deal with it or learn from it or, you know, whatever it is. And that's going to be key, I think, moving forward as people trust that they can reach out, that they can be open, you know, that they can basically walk across the road if they have to and get some help or get some instruction. So hopefully we call it the Soil Health Assembly. Hopefully we'll be getting together right after harvest and, you know, start talking about, you know, new things. But we might have to find a new venue.
Expanding a little quicker than you maybe would have thought. Yep.
It's a nice problem to have, though. It's all right.
No, you can never complain about people wanting to learn and wanting to have these conversations with you guys.
But the neat part about this local deal is as this grew quickly, in a month and a half, all of a sudden we had producers that they're just stepping their toe into no-till for the first time, or they're just planting their cover crop for the first time, or to no-tillers that have been doing this for 30 years. And it gets a little chaotic in here. We gotta hold them down and keep them on point, but the amount of knowledge that can be shared and passed on so that new producer doesn't have to jump through the hoops that we did, the potential pitfalls, the potential profit losses, and all that type of stuff. Let's get this moving, get it moving forward, and make sure everybody stays profitable doing it.
Yeah, because, I mean, you might have a bad year or two, but, I mean, you'll have a bad year or two whether or not you're doing or farming conventionally, or whether you're in the soil health regenerative kind of system. It's super year by year. I mean, like we've mentioned before, you can't control Mother Nature, and it's just having that trustful hand to tell you to keep going and show you, you know, maybe this is exactly where you went wrong. Maybe if you did this small thing when you planted, this could have been avoided. And so I think having that group and that soundboard to fall back on, so you don't get scared out of it within your first year or two, and just keep going, because like Grant said earlier, it takes about 3 to 5 years to see this stuff, and we see that all the time at the office. It's just, you got to keep going, you got to keep forging ahead.
Sometimes it's like a support group rather than instruction, but that's okay too.
No, farmers take on a role of just about everything you can imagine here.
Yeah.
Well, is there any kind of piece of advice that you guys want to get out there for different growers, whether they're starting or whether they're more experienced, just your golden token of knowledge?
Well, if you're looking at this and thinking about change, start right away. Don't, if you're not comfortable doing it across your whole landscape, at least start behind the farm where nobody can see it and try it and learn it on your own. That's the one thing we regret, was that we didn't find this path 10 years earlier, because it would have really helped us out profitability wise. And if you're, my biggest word is for those looking at this is to just start. Just do 20 acres behind the grove, 40 acres, whatever. Try it. Start figuring this stuff out. And then you can tell me, yeah, you can't plant green in Minnesota. But I do have a friend that's called me. I've lost track of it now, I think, for 9 years. And the first 5 years he called me every March, and he's from 3 hours north of here. And every single spring he said, you know, I thought that stuff you talked about was all crazy. It wasn't going to work. He did it all behind his grove. And at year 5, he said, it works. It's going along the highway. And he says, I'll put up signs. I'll do whatever I have to. So as a producer, we need to just start. For those who have been doing this for a long time, I highly encourage share your knowledge. They don't teach this stuff in a book. That you can watch a lot of YouTube videos and learn a lot of it that way, but for a producer who's been doing it a long time and has the knowledge, just share it to whoever's ready to learn it.
They could suddenly be gone one day, like David Brandt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to try and reach out and make those connections when you can, because there's so much knowledge sitting out there in some of these growers' minds. And I mean, just like you guys, they really, really want to share it, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, there's some very private individuals out there that have been doing this for decades, and we don't even know who they are, but they've been successful at it. So, you know, if somehow this message could reach them, you know, share that knowledge. Chances are they're probably up there in age, you know, and just quietly doing their thing, but it's really important. And I hope that that people use their knowledge before it's not there anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've been blessed to meet some guys up in age that have really got this figured out, and I certainly hope to get it passed on to their son or whoever's taking over their farm, so at least that knowledge stays there. In the meantime, we're trying to glean everything we can from these guys, and we got to keep farming. We don't have enough time to get to see these guys and glean the knowledge, but it's not going to disappear. It's going to be there, but it should be shared, because it can make us all more profitable. It can fix a lot of the problems we're dealing with in the environment right now.
Yeah, I mean, we never have a consistent year weather-wise, and I think that's really important, because it doesn't matter if it's a drought or if it's, you know, a really wet spring like we had this year. You never know what you're going to get, and I think doing these soil health practices really helps you be, your mindset changes to being more offensive, and so you're ready for changes like that and the unpredictable, whereas, you know, you might be sitting back on your haunches if you're maybe a little bit more conventional, because you know what you're going to do, you know what you plan to do, but now the weather threw a curveball and you don't really know how to deal with it. Whereas I feel like soil health and regenerative farmers are a little more used to that.
Flexible and resilience. I mean, it's huge.
So when we started down this path, we had some really good weather years farming, and we were purists about the principles. I'm no longer a purist about the principles. We got to get a crop in the ground. We got to figure out how to get it in the ground and get it growing. And that might completely be against some of the principles that are taught, that are spoken of. But a good friend of ours, he always says it this way when he's giving a presentation: there's pluses and minuses. If you know you're doing a minus, let's work at putting another plus in there to get it to at least equal out, or add 2 pluses in there so we're back to a positive. Mm-hmm. And we can do that on our farms. It doesn't matter what we're growing, what we're producing. That mindset is pretty neat how he looks at it. Hey, there's times we got to do tillage just to get this crop in the ground. We got to get the soil dried out, whatever we got to do. Know we did it, and then have a plan to try to add a couple more pluses back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just owning up to it and understanding that your operation is your operation. I mean, that's what you're here to do. You're here to grow, and you're here to make your living. You can't just stick to what you quote unquote should do if it's not going to be profitable and if it's not going to yield anything, because you would rather have a good crop out there than something that completely derailed. And what's the point of having that crop out there anymore?
There's pluses and minuses. There'll be good days and there'll be bad days. Just in any of it, there's good days and bad days.
All right. Well, is there any other stories, any other parting gifts you want to leave with our viewers here?
Yeah, we've covered a lot. There's always way more rabbit holes to go down. There's all kinds of stuff out there with like what we're doing right here with the podcast, YouTube. It's all out there, but I highly encourage, if you're new to this and starting to go down this path, is you have to do this on your own farm. We were blessed to have some visitors here from Kazakhstan this summer. And the one thing I took away from them was when they were still under Russian control, you farmed by a book. Now, we don't have that here in the United States, but maybe regulations come on someday that we will be farming by a book. But let's try to avoid that, because these gentlemen told us if you didn't farm by the book, you disappeared at night. And I was like, wow, it can really get that way. So I just highly encourage everybody to, do what you can, do what you're comfortable with, and hopefully they don't regulate us into something like that.
No, that's kind of always been the hope, is to just try and do it while it's new and while there's incentives. I mean, there's always some type of government assistance. Exactly like how you guys got into it with Equip. There was something there to kind of help you and offset maybe those financial struggles that there can be when you transfer to something like this system.
You're exactly right. There's so many different grant programs out there now, and different incentive programs that can help these new producers, where that funding might not be available to those of us that have adopted, early adopters. Take advantage of that. There is nothing wrong. There's no shame in taking those dollars to help you stay profitable and learn this. If we do have losses, consider it tuition. It's a lesson learned, but definitely take advantage of those programs and hook up with somebody that knows what is available out there, like the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition or whatever state coalition you might, be listening from. There's a lot of soil health coalitions out there that are that can help with that, local groups, all those things. Take advantage of those. Those weren't always available. They weren't available to us.
No, the local conservation district offices have really changed in the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
We've witnessed it. There's a lot of knowledge right locally.
Yeah, no, seeing that grown, and we see it at the state level and the county level, and now these different positions are opening up in Minnesota. I think we're really grateful and thankful to be in Minnesota, that we're really focusing on the soil health and that there's opportunities. And even though there's not really financial opportunities always available for you guys, there sometimes is a little trinket thrown out at you guys saying that long-term adopters can go for it. But just having that knowledge and having people available for you guys, I'm sure, is huge, because there's always something to learn. All right. Well, I think that about wraps us up. So thank you guys for joining us on the show. We really appreciate you guys being willing to talk about your guys' experience in soil health and talking about how your mentorship and how that's been really, really crucial to your guys' development and going down the soil health journey path.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us again.
Yeah, and I'll just say it. Most people can figure out how to find our number and get a hold of us. So if you got questions, just call. We're busy, but I'll eventually get back to you.
Oh, yeah, we appreciate you guys. So thank you. This has been Grant and Dawn Breitkreutz on the Armored Soil Podcast, and we hope you join us next time.